Welcome to the Business Advisor Hot Seat. I'm George Sandman, founder and CEO. And in the hot seat every week are senior pros like you sharing their tips, tricks, and techniques for delivering client wins. So we're going to cover a lot of the methodology and process that's it's in my book, The Growth Driving Advisor. So if learning how to be better at doing what you do, learning what others are doing is important to you, listen up, strap in, and let's go. Hello, everyone. It's George. And this week we're going to do something I've never done before. I'm actually going to read you and editorialize heavily on today's blog post. So if you're watching this online, you can pick this up on YouTube. If you're listening over or Apple or Spotify, you can go to YouTube and the video is posted. But let's talk about today's Growth Advisor blog. And I've decided to do this for a variety of reasons. We've focused a bit on exit planning over the last few weeks. And that was in run up to EPI's annual conference, which is just wrapping up today down in Florida. Now, well, I'll jump into the article. I'm going to read it, but I'm going to riff on it, man. I'm going to dig into some of these concepts much more deeply than I can in a writing in the hopes that this is helpful. And I don't have a guest this week, so here we go. The title this week is Exit Planning is Step 1. Growth is Steps 2 to 7. It's really 2 to infinity, right? Growth is the thing. So, a lot of it was a very quiet coffee class today because a lot of our members are SEPAs and they're down in Florida. But by no means all. We are a very diverse community of advisors, wealth advisors, growth advisors, CPAs, investment bankers, and more. And most of our community is down in Florida. And I'm going to start by talking about the two big exit planning organizations because there's a perception out there that they are competitive, and maybe they are, but they're really, from my perspective, from this man's perspective, they are actually very complementary. And EPI has done a great job of distributing awareness, distributing training certification on exit planning. And their value acceleration, EPI's value acceleration methodology. More on that in a sec. Now, BEI is more aligned with Growth Drive, right? Growth Drive is knowledge, tools, and support, and we are deeply committed to delivering successful outcomes. BEI is, say it with me, knowledge, tools, and support. And they, like us, are deeply committed to delivering successful client outcomes. Now, I don't want to even infer that EPI is not committed to delivering successful client outcomes. We're just a very different business model and community than BEI or the boutique CBEC out of Boston, the IEPA out of Boston. So the two biggest organizations have a very different and complementary approaches. So what BEI does is different is they have proprietary software that helps craft an exit plan, right? If you are a planner, if you're someone who actually wants to write the plan, what would be a 3 on the 1 to 5 scale here in the Growth Drive community, right? Are you a 1 or a 5? BEI does that, and then they have very specialized training around it, and more. EPI takes a different perspective, and they direct their members, and there's a lot of overlap. A lot of people have both credentials. They direct their members towards third-party providers, sometimes sponsored, sometimes not. Both fantastic organizations with a long history in this market. And between them, they have really popularized exit planning. It's gone from being, as I told Scott Snyder in our most recent conversation, it's gone from being really a dirty word, right? I don't mention that to the business owner, to being a breakfast table conversation. So we all owe you a debt of gratitude. Okay. So, and evidently the conference is great. I'm getting great reports, back texts and emails on LinkedIn connection. So very cool. Now, there are a lot of exit planners out there, and there are a lot of exit planners in our community. So I'm going to click on this link and jump into the article. Now, we love exit planners, right? And exit planners are very important to Growth Drive as we deliver on our vision and mission. And our vision, if you'll recall, is to help $1 trillion of private businesses increase strategic capacity in the three dimensions of business growth. Transferable value being one of those dimensions. Exit planners are great at starting the conversation, and by census, if you will, by demographic, most exit planners are also wealth advisors and insurance advisors. Okay. So the space is dominated by people who actually don't want to do many of the things that the typical business needs in order to successfully complete a transaction. That is, we can talk about the reasons somewhere else, but that is not out of some, that's how it's played out, right? That's not out of some nefarious intent. Believe me, both Scott at EPI and Fletch at BEI would love to have more growth advisors, or as EPI calls them, value advisors. And they're working hard on that. Terrific. Now, as an advisor, what might you need once you have an exit plan, right? An exit plan is like buying a map, and you've chosen a destination or two, and there are 6 total. We teach this in the C3D course. Fletcher Brown, the CEO at BEI, helps teach that class. And there are 6 exits, and so we have a plan. And I want to go, I want to do, either I want to sell to a third party, barring that, I want to sell to my management team. Terrific. What are you going to need once you have an exit plan? Now, there are some important statistics that we discuss all the time that come to bear. Now, having analyzed over 50,000 and growing CEOs, this is self-reported but guided by their advisors, we know that at any given time, only 17% of businesses are actively looking to exit their business. Now, I just read a stat put out by EPI that 70 plus, mid-70s% of business owners intend to exit in the next 10 years. Kind of stands to reason. Think about the demographics, the boomers. But at any given time, and over this is data from a decade, almost a decade and a half. And pretty consistently, 17% are looking to exit at any given time. Cool. Now, 86% of those, though, need to grow value to deliver a win, right? They need to increase the transferable value, the net that they're going to get when they sell their business in order to achieve their wealth goals. Now, let's stop right there. Here is my first riff. I really prefer, goals are cool. Goals are nice, but where do you intend to go? At Growth Drive, we talk about intent. We talk about strategic intent. And the Growth Drive methodology and process starts, and we discussed this on the class this morning. The Growth Drive methodology and process starts, and I'm going to wave my workbook around again, the playbook. There it is. Put it in front of the camera. The playbook, tab 5, and it's a thick one. Is all about the growth conversation. What is the growth conversation designed to do? The growth conversation is designed to identify, discover, cement, confirm where your client's life is going to go. Let's talk about the business in a second, but how does this play out? How do you shorthand, how do you take care of your family, yourself, your family, your stakeholders, your employees, your legacy, your community? All of those things are important to some degree to every single business owner. Okay. So the growth conversation identifies their strategic intent. I intend to blank. Great. Then, and only then, can we look at the business in the context of that intent? How is the business positioned to deliver that intent? You have strategic intent defined. Now we need to understand the business's capacity, strategic capacity, trademark term of ours. You're welcome to use it, just TM it. Anyhow, does the business have the strategic capacity to deliver? And strategic capacity drives growth and value. So here in the blog, when we ask a question, let me ask you, what might precise step-by-step instructions for growing strategic capacity mean for your clients and for your advisory business, right? As your clients go, so do you, right? Your fortunes are tied to theirs. And here's the truth. And unless, ye gads, liquidation is the exit, the business must become immortal, a living, breathing engine that grows profits and delivers value without your client at the helm, right? And without your client at the wheel. And if you want to make a business immortal, you need to help them build strategic capacity. And this builds a must-have business that private equity will fight to own, right? How do you go from hat in hand to holding the auction gavel? Now, the power move is to understand and be relevant to the strategic capacity of a business. And those of you out here if you are not even exit planning, just a tradition, not just, if you're a traditional wealth advisor, insurance advisor who is not yet engaged in exit planning, totally cool. You still care about strategic capacity, because strategic capacity is how you have a conversation that transcends discussion about business value in future AUM. Let's make the conversation current. So strategic capacity describes a business's ability to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow. Put that another way. If you're buying a business, would you want to know how likely it is to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow? Heck yes, you would. Unless you're buying a business for some strategic reason, and those are very real and often more valuable than anything that comes out of traditional valuation methods. But if you want to buy a business, and if you want your business to look super attractive to a third party, that's the highest bar, right? That is where you're going to typically get the most value. But then you want to create high confidence in the buyer that the business is going to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow. And this delivers on the owner's personal, financial, and business intents. This is not theory. This is execution. This is not a one-day workshop. This is a system that you can apply with clients and leave an indelible mark with them, whether you work with them for a day or for years, helping them understand strategic capacity and understand how they might take action to increase their strategic capacity, leaves an indelible mark with that client on all the good that comes out of leaving such a mark. Okay. This is why Growth Drive exists. So exit planning is important, right? It's one of the C3D cornerstone classes. We teach it of the 4 parts of the course. It's in the first part, the methodology course. It's, right alongside valuation methodologies. So exit planning is important because it's so crucial to align the owner's goals and legacy in the context of their business, right? But the math doesn't lie. The vast majority of CEOs aren't looking to exit. And that's the thing. Remember, 17% are. The vast majority are not. They want to grow. They want to simplify. They want to make their business easier to run. 62% want to grow. 21% want to make their business easier to run. Shouldn't you talk to them also? Shouldn't you expand your reach and relevance so that your conversation includes them as well? Because here's the thing. You should be in a niche and you should focus on transferable value. That is the ultimate measure of business success. But if your clients can't hear transferable value, talk to them about what is bothering them today and then educate them. Educate them about how they can make their business easier to run in a way that is going to make their revenues pop and translates into transferable value. Those are the 3 dimensions of growth. So if you want your client to sleep better at night, you need to help them understand strategic capacity. All right, and then there's a link here in the article to join the community. The community, which is, some of it is behind a paywall, but most of it is free. No credit card required, free now, free forever. Okay. That's the same standard that applies to our lead generator module, that initial education module, major upgrade coming. And that is also free. Okay. This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Now we get into another concept. The business must become immortal. Again, this morning on the Coffee Klatch, Larry Prince, a very active member of the Growth Drive community, part of the C3D faculty, keep plugging it, but I don't mean to be. But Larry is struggling with a client. It's a business that was worth $60 million, has lost some revenue, and I didn't get into the fact that if they have declining revenues, your value is going to decline far more quickly on a percentage basis than your revenues had. But anyway, because of risk, right? Perceived risk. Larry has a client who's having a hard time understanding why their business, why they need to make themselves replace themselves, make themselves irrelevant to the forward progress of the business. And we talked about helping her understand, as a woman with a very sophisticated SaaS company, helping her understand that she needs to make the business immortal. It needs to go on to greater glory after she's gone. That is what people are buying, right? They're buying the immortal part of the business. They're not buying the history. The history just gives them some comfort and some understanding about where the business is going to go. So clients can't exit what isn't built to last. They can't get max value for what won't scale, maximum value for what won't scale. A business that looks like it is scalable or scaling has value with a bunch of caveats. But man, if you want to communicate value, these are the things you need to communicate. Whether you're a growth-focused founder, a CEO with AUM to protect, or someone just trying to get out of the grind, the answer is the same. Maximize strategic capacity. Now, this is where Growth Drive steps in. And this is why exit planners love this community, not simply because they show up with a plan, but they're showing up with a process and a way to educate clients. Now, let's take a step back. I'm about to get into a complicated 7-step advisory process. But before we get into that, I don't want to confuse anybody. Let's recap the advisor spectrum, right? This is where you want to play, and it applies to the advisory process. Let's start with, are you a 1 or a 5? Ones are talkers, and let's keep it in the exit planning context. A 1 is a talker, and that's a lot of exit planners, and they're simply comfortable talking to their clients about these concepts. 2s are educators. They want to do more than simply talk about it. They want to educate their clients about transferable value, the impact of due diligence on value, the different exit paths, and when I start educating them about which might be the most appropriate or appealing for them, et cetera. They're educators. Now, the next is the architect, 3, 1 to 5, right? We're at 3. Now, 3s are also 2s and 1s. 4s are also 3s and 2s and 1s. This is a spectrum. So a 3 is an architect. An architect wants to create a plan. That's where BEI comes in. They're like, hey, if you're the type of exit planner who wants to create a plan, we have software called Planet that you can use. By the way, those of you with compliance departments, it may be attractive to you to know. Now, there are more than one way to skin a cat, right? BEI makes it easy to skin the cat. They say, here is the deliverable that your client's going to get. And your advisor is going to put in this information. They may collaborate with another advisor, but this and with the client, but here's what the plan will look like. Here's what's going to be in it. And you want to give compliance a sigh of relief. This is one way to do it. There are other ways, very effective ways, but BEI has a terrific solution. That's why I say they're more akin to Growth Drive in terms of having software. Cool. So your 3s are architects. Your 4s are general contractors. General contractors help the CEO take the plan and turn it into reality. They are growth drivers, growth advisors. And I use the word growth on purpose because more often than not, essentially always, first of all, no one is sad when they can get more value at the deal table, right? Most businesses must grow, and most businesses must increase strategic capacity in order to successfully complete an M&A transaction. All right. So those are your 4s. They are like, hey man, I can take this plan and help you turn it into reality. And somewhere between 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 is where we lose most exit planners. You stop wanting to do the direct work. That does not mean you do not want the outcome of that work. That doesn't mean you don't want to collaborate. You do. You want to collaborate and you want to understand who are safe people to collaborate with. We'll come back to that. And fives, are you a 1 or 5? Fives are fractional. That is on steroids. It's a special case. So Growth Drive is a community of 2s, 3s, and 4s. Now, let's say you have educated the client. You're going to need someone to create a plan. Let's say you've educated the client and you've created the plan. You might want someone to help turn that plan into reality. Because, guys, little truth, said someone who's been an entrepreneur for 30 years, your typical CEO probably can't get it done. I know there are cases where they do, but your typical CEO, and I would say 9 out of 10, are not going to, for the same investment of time, are not going to get as far as they would if they had a professional holding them accountable. All right. So, and this is why EOS is effective, right? Because doing something is better than doing nothing. Now, what EOS? That's a different podcast. In fact, we've had it. EOS does great stuff, but Growth Drive, Growth Drive looks to the outside world and to the standards set by the private capital markets and says, this is what you must become. No matter how you feel and what you think and what you see, that is important, but in the context of the private capital markets. All right. So Growth Drive is a process, one that moves the conversation from are you ready to sell to are you building something worth buying? Are you ready to sell versus are you building something worth buying? And Growth Drive is a methodology and a process and software and support and templates and scripts and to help you help your client build a business that is worth buying, high strategic capacity. For a business to maximize transferable value, it must become immortal, okay, to go on to greater glory without your client at the wheel. All right, so imagine this. Clear your mind. Imagine this. A business that's not just ready to exit, but so good that buyers fight over it. A business so profitable and well run that the owner may decide they don't need to sell at all. And that is strategic capacity in action. Now, your success, I mentioned our vision, $1 trillion increasing strategic capacity. I've mentioned the members of our community and the advisory spectrum. We're going to get into the advisory process in a moment. Your success is vital, is important to us. It's important to me. Let's take a quick look at the 3 dimensions. So if we're going to help $1 trillion private businesses increase strategic capacity in the 3 dimensions of business growth, let's take a quick recap of our methodology, the 3 dimensions of growth. And it's what's described in my book, The Growth Driving Advisor. So dimension 1, predictable profits and cash flow. That's about effective leadership, strong margins, recurring revenue streams. This is the launch pad for scale. Second dimension is predictable, sustainable growth, right? So first we understand the cash you have to invest in growth, and then we pull the levers on creating sustainable growth. Growth that doesn't require heroics, that's supported by a killer culture with real accountability. And then we get into the third dimension. Now, there are dimensions. If you imagine a business that is creating predictable cash flow and sustainable growth, is it more valuable than it was at the beginning of the process? Heck yes. That's why these are dimension. You can move in all 3 at the same time. And another little caveat, if you increase strategic capacity just in the first dimension for your client, revenues will pop, period. The data is in. What's the third dimension? Predictable, transferable value, the kind of value that attracts buyers, banks, and investors, and that crushes the owner's wealth goals. You know, the people who brag like, well, other people are getting 4 and 5 times. I got 10 times earnings. Why? You have to always ask why. Why did you get 10 times earnings? Was it for strategic reasons? Or did you become so attractive to private equity that you became a strategic acquisition, a platform company? Isn't that where you want to go? And Clarity, our software is the engine that makes it all real, right? How do we make this approachable, scalable, easy to use, maximize your efficiency? This is more than dashboards, more than reports. This is actual deliverables, actionable next steps, alignment across stakeholders. And those stakeholders include your advisory team, fractional CFOs, attorneys, accountants, etc. All right. So then, as you scroll down, you're going to get you get a little vignette, a little window. and I ask, where do you want to play and where do you want to collaborate? Right? So you have the 1 to 5 spectrum. Now you have, if maybe you've already decided as I was talking through this, where you want to play. Well, the rest of the process has to go on. So I ask, where do you want to play and where do you want to collaborate? Because my good friend, SEPA and C3D candidate Mike Garrison calls this type of collaboration that we're about to describe being safe drivers, right? His book, Can I Borrow Your Car, is a must read. There's a link here in the article. You can go buy it on Amazon. Heck, send me an email. I'll send you a copy. We got cases of them. Every C3D participant gets this book, among many others. Anyway, I digress. So then I added the 7 elements of the business advisory process. Now, remember whether you're a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5, right? Remember that. And then think about where you would want to jump off the bus or where you'd want to bring in a co-driver, someone with whom to collaborate. So the C3D board outlines 7 primary elements of the strategic business advisory process. These elements are 1, discovering the client's strategic intent. 2, educating the client about their business's current strategic capacity to deliver their intent. 3, analyzing the client's strategic capacity in the 3 dimensions of business growth. Okay, so educating and then analyzing. 4, designing, educate, analyze, design, designing a plan to increase strategic capacity in line with successfully delivering the client's intent. 5, advising the client as they execute their plan. 6, collaborating with relevant advisors in support of successfully executing the plan. And 7, regularly confirming intent, monitoring progress, and updating the plan if needed in line with increasing capacity and delivering intended results. So these elements form the core of the growth drive approach to improving strategic capacity aligned with the client's intent. Now, I'm not going to spend much more time on this, but if you're a 2, you're an educator. I'm an exit planning wealth advisor, and I want to educate my client, and then I want someone else to create the plan. Well, you're going to want to discover their strategic intent. That's the growth conversation I mentioned earlier. You're going to want to potentially educate them about their business's current strategic capacity to deliver their intent. And you can do that for yourself or bring someone else into the room. And then you may want to say, okay, from here on, who's going to create the strategic plan and who's going to help lead execution? That's terrific. If you're a 3, you're going to want to go through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. And if you're a 4 in our advisory spectrum, right, you're the general contractor, you're going to want to advise the client as they execute the plan, collaborate with relevant advisors, and always regularly confirm intent. In C3D, we get into why that is, but okay, so there's a process here. This is not simply a methodology. There is a process for interacting with the client. There are a couple of processes. And then we have a very precise, step-by-step, customized per the client process for increasing strategic capacity. And we ask the question here in the article, why, or make the statement, why strategic capacity wins? Because when you build strategic capacity, you do more than prepare for an exit. You prepare the business to thrive with more profits, better leadership, best-in-class operational systems, and less drama. And here's the magic. What if they never sell? What if they never want to exit? That's great, because there's a 7th exit option that the exit planners don't talk about, right? The BEI and EPI and the IEPA don't talk about. And that's the oil well. Now, listen carefully. There's a 7th exit option. We teach it in C3D. It's the oil well, which is creating an ATM feeding AUM. Your client says, I never want to stop working. I never want to leave. In fact, that was part of the class this morning as well. The business becomes a personal wealth engine with more income, more freedom, and more control. Ask yourself this question. In a world with $2 trillion of dry powder, right? $2 trillion supply of capital and a $10 trillion silver tsunami demand, right? So we have 2 trillion of supply and 10 trillion of demand. How might executing this 7th exit option play out? Hey, you never have to go for more capital, but we're going to increase the strategic capacity of your business so that you can achieve your wealth goals using the business as the forever vehicle. Keep taking your salary, keep growing, keep. Okay. And that's great because if you're a wealth advisor, you know that they're going to be buying insurance products, they're going to be buying more advanced planning, they're going to be plowing cash into AUM, and this can be done in ways that are tax advantaged. Right? You can't escape the tax man, but that are tax advantaged. So, so does that make sense? There's a 7th exit option, the oil well, and in a world with $2 trillion of capital and $10 trillion of need, how is that going to play out? There's a blue box here. You need more than a methodology. So when I look at the EPI's excellent value acceleration methodology, more than a methodology, you also need a process. And let's not confuse the two. A lot of people, when they first come to Growth Drive, confused. They're like, well, I have a value acceleration methodology. I say, great. How does that play out? What are you going to do with that? How do you increase value? Because it is terrific at guiding the conversation. And then that's why Growth Drive has attracted so many CEPAs and CEXPs and CBECs, because we have the process for increasing strategic capacity, driving growing profits and higher transferable value. You need a methodology and a process, precise step-by-step instructions with a proven record of successfully delivering what your client needs. Does this sound like an infomercial? I guess it does. But guys, this is vitally important. This is vitally important to this is vitally important to the communities in which you live. It's vitally important to you, to the future of your advisory business, right? This is vitally important to your clients. If we can be part of the solution, great. If you find it somewhere else, great. The important thing is let's get to work. So this is why exit planners and growth advisors alike love what we help them deliver. All right. And I'll leave it there. Now, how will you deliver the win? Many conversations start with exit planning, but they should never stop there, right? If you want to expand your reach and relevance, you need to speak not only to the 17% who are preparing to sell, but the 83% who don't want to talk about exit yet, right? Be relevant to them today. They're going to want to talk about exit at some point. Speak to that 83% who don't want to exit. For those who do, honor the 4 and 5 who need to grow value to reach their strategic intent, actually known as their wealth and legacy goals, right? The real value, the enduring value, starts with increasing strategic capacity. The enduring value starts with growth. So at Growth Drive, we just don't talk about value. We help you create it. And let's get to work. We are here. We are happy to help. And I'm going to make a point that I make routinely. My personal vision is to end poverty at micro and macro levels and to deliver jobs that create dignity. Let's put that aside. Private businesses are the engines for the pursuit of happiness. The government can't solve this. No, private business is the engine for the pursuit of happiness. I am not going to make it a requirement that you do business with Growth Drive in order to have you help put your shoulder to the wheel. This is why we give away so much free advice, free resources, a free community. We have almost 200 advisors in our rapidly growing community. So let's get to work. We're here. We're happy to help, and call me anytime. All right, or jump into the community and ask questions. It's free. There's no downside. So cool. Thank you. And I am going to end with a little bit of an ad. The Growth Drive Summit is on, guys. We just had the first meeting of of the agenda committee, and we summit that gathers growth advisors, exit planners, CPAs, M&A pros, fractional CFOs, your 1s, your 2s, your 3s, your 4s, here in Charleston, South Carolina. at his beautiful Grand Dame Hotel on October 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we celebrate, we learn, we share, we build our networks. Guys, this is the one event you should participate in this year. And if you want to talk to 1, 2, 3 people who attended last year or years prior as to why the heck they're so excited about what we have going on, I'll connect you with them. All you have to do is ask. You just parachute into the community. Can somebody tell me why the hell I would come down to South Carolina? You're going to hear. Okay? Registration is open. Bring a colleague, bring your spouse, come on down. By the way, the room block is 10 days long. So bring your spouse and come and have a good time. That's it. Thank you. I am deeply committed to your success. So let us know how we can help. And until next time, I'm just going to say ciao for now.
This week's episode is brought to you by Growth Drive and the C3D certification. If you're looking to expand your reach and relevance with business-owning clients, whether you're a business advisor or a wealth advisor, this is a course for you. This is a certification for you. And after completing it, you will understand how to make profits and transferable value M&A price actionable, how to maximize results for your clients. So get the details at growthdrive.com/C3D, scan the QR code, register. Listen, this is the path to building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins.
Hi, this is George. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe, like, and please take 2 seconds to leave a review. It tells the world that you like what we're doing, and it helps us understand how we can improve the show. Thank you, and see you next time.